Your next promotion is just the beginning, and this podcast shows you how to get there. Welcome to episode number 170. Today's episode marks a huge milestone for me in my career as an executive coach, and also the woman, Jennifer Fisher, who I'm interviewing in today's episode, has also hit an incredibly huge milestone in her career. Recently, she was promoted to Chief Sales Officer at WorldStrides. And in today's episode, she's going to be sharing about her journey moving from vice president to senior vice president and eventually getting promoted into the Chief Sales Officer role after 3 years on her executive leadership path. I have been working with Jennifer for about 3.5 years, and it's been an absolutely incredible journey. And honestly, I've shared parts of that journey with you all along the way. You can go back to numerous different episodes on this podcast where I've interviewed Jennifer about her leadership, about her challenges, ways that she is working with her team. And in today's episode, we really get to dive into how she became a thought leader, how she was able to transition into that chief executive officer role and never again look back, how she was able to develop that grounded confidence in herself as a leader, and how now she's able to pivot relatively quickly in even the most difficult of circumstances. If you are enjoying this episode and you want to go back and you want to hear about how I work with women on their executive leadership path over a 3-year time period, we're going to link to that episode in the show notes. But really, I just want you to listen to today's episode to ask yourself, where am I inspired? And then to turn that back on yourself. Because if you listen to Jennifer's story and you see parts of that and you say, wow, I want that to be me someday, that means it is absolutely 100% possible for you. And this podcast can help you make that happen. Celebrate with me as we talk to Jennifer Fisher and how she is a woman who is changing leadership. Let's get started. Welcome to Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and I teach you how to get promoted, get paid, and bring your whole self to the leadership table. I am on a mission to change organizations from the C-suite out because women are the new face of leadership, and we are doing it on our terms. Hello, corporate badasses. Welcome to another episode of Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and here with an incredible guest this week. You have met her on my previous podcast episodes like 2-3 times. I don't know. We'll try and find all the interviews I've done with you on previous episodes, but this is the first time I have interviewed her in 2 ways. One is for Women Changing Leadership. And in today's podcast, we're going to talk about how she is a woman who is changing leadership and inspiring other women to change their own leadership. And then number 2, this is the first time I have had her on this podcast as Chief Sales Officer. Yay! We've been giggling before the podcast, so you can tell we're both incredibly excited and honestly honored to have each other on the podcast. So I'm really excited to bring Jennifer Fisher back on today live. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for being here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Stacy. It is quite an honor to be here. It's been an amazing journey with you and the other podcast and all that you do. So to be here today is just such an honor. Thank you.
So we're going to be talking about so many things today, but first I want to more formally introduce Jennifer. As I mentioned, she is the Chief Sales Officer at WorldStrides, and she'll talk more about her work and her leadership at WorldStrides. And when I think about Jennifer and what I admire about her so much, well, there's so many things I'm going to talk about in today's episode and really just point out like just her ability to focus on, what she can control, to pivot, to change, her leadership, to her willingness and humility to take a step back when needed, and just so many things. But what I think comes to mind the most right now is that she, as a leader, really paints a vision of what's possible for her team, and really, not only the vision, she doesn't leave it there. She says, okay, this is how we're going to get there together as a team. You're all on board on this greater mission, this greater vision. And she just really galvanizes other people towards that. And thankfully, her CEO of her organization recognizes that, and she's been recognized accordingly. And it's just so wonderful to watch her leadership grow over the years.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. That just means the world to me. Thank you.
So I have a question for you. It's a little leading question. Have you always been chief sales officer?
No, I have not. No, that was something by the end of last summer is when I was promoted to chief sales officer. But I've been in sales for 30 years. And that was always my career vision, was to reach the chief sales officer level.
Yeah, it's so good. And, we met about 3.5 years ago and have been working together since then, when you were vice president of sales. And it's just been obviously an incredible journey. But I remember at that time, one of the processes that I teach is to 3X your vision. And a lot of people look at their 3X vision as like really far in the future. And so we did work on both, like, well, it'd be really great to be chief sales officer someday, right? And then like, well, what if it happened sooner? And you're like, oh, okay. And then really our work over the last couple of years has been to make sure that you feel ready and supported and are operating at that chief sales officer level, so that it's just a no-brainer. Yes, of course, for your organization to say yes to you and to promote you to that role, but also for you and your sustainability and your voice and being able to do the work that you want to do at that level.
It's so true. And it's like the impact that I like to have now out in the world. Obviously, sales is just my passion. I love sales, and I love to help people find their journey and their path and their careers. But lining that up at WorldStrides in this role, and then leading what I like to call the next generation of sales professionals. It's so rewarding. I'm giving back. I'm creating opportunities to help people, not just in sales, but also to fine tune their own leadership skills, things that I can do to really make an impact within my organization.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk a little bit more about the work that you're doing specifically at WorldStrides. So for those of us who don't know what WorldStrides does and who they are, can you tell us a little bit more about that? And then another idea that came to mind is, what are some of the ways that you're helping other leaders at your organization grow?
Oh, great questions. So WorldStrides is an educational travel company. And at WorldStrides, we put together educational travel for students, basically from kindergarten all the way up through adults. We call it the lifelong journey and the lifelong learning journey. I am specifically the chief sales officer of our higher education division. And what that means in higher ed is basically your study abroad programs. So working with colleges and universities to develop study abroad programs, what we call on the individual side, when a student goes to Spain for a semester, goes to Italy for a year, and also what we call faculty-led programming. So when a faculty wants to take his or her class to Spain or his or her class to Germany for 1 to 2 weeks to study, part of their curriculum and really live out experiential learning. So we do all of that. So anything within the higher ed realm of educational travel is what we do. And honestly, you put the two worlds together, sales, which I love sales, and to me, it's the best profession in the whole world. But then to do it at a company like WorldStrides, where we are changing lives, we're literally changing lives, and have those two come together. I mean, it's the best job in the world. And honestly, I feel like I am the luckiest person in the world.
Now, I know we're going to talk a little bit more about helping other leaders at your organization in a minute, but to stay with this for another moment.
Yes.
One thing that I also really appreciate about you and your leadership is this desire for inclusivity. And I think it goes both ways. Being a female leader is one thing, like, I would love to see other women, advance and things like that. But it also seems to be a little bit bigger for you, where it's also the accessibility of travel, and how traditionally in higher education is like an exclusive market. And then also on top of that, the people who get to study abroad. Can you speak to a little bit more like how you have the eyes and ears out to make sure that you're creating an inclusive environment across the board at WorldStrides?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it does, to your point, it does go twofold, right? Because it's also that inclusive and accessible environment at WorldStrides, but it's also what we do with our university partners. Because to your point, higher education, is a little exclusive in and of itself. And then when you throw in the study abroad component, not everybody can afford that. It's not accessible to anybody. And that's one of the things that WorldStrides truly believes in, is making educational travel accessible to everybody. So we work with university partners on many different initiatives, even passport grants that we have, because we want to make sure a lot of the students who travel abroad have never been on an airplane. They've never had a passport. So we actually fund passports for students so that they can travel on these programs. And this year is WorldStrides' 55th anniversary. So we have what we're calling creating lifetime moments together, right? And we're creating that scholarship of creating those lifetime moments. And those are scholarships that we're giving out to individual students so that they can find ways to travel and see the world, because we know how valuable that is to really understand a diverse point of view, different perspective, challenges in different environments. It's so powerful. And when you see those students come back home, I mean, they're changed forever. Like they've grown up and they've seen the world, and they're now ready to make an impact in their community or in their environment now, which is just wonderful.
Yeah, they are. You could see the life-changing moments on their face, right? And
That's right.
I love what you said about passports. It's like, I wouldn't have thought of that, but of course you're in this industry, but I'm like, yeah, people don't have passports. Not everybody has a passport. Not everybody has been on a plane. And this is just so important for us to realize that, and to make, travel and these types of programs accessible to all. And I know that you always kind of, as that visionary leader, you have a greater pulse on like, I almost picture you being able to see everybody and everything, even if they're not in the room. Like you see the impact on like all the people. It's so incredible. And so speaking of that, in terms of leadership, when we think about inclusivity and leadership, a lot of times, our hiring practices and bringing people on board is that you've already proven yourself as a leader. You've already done the role, right? Then we'll hire you. And I don't think that you see the world that way. You're like, oh, you're looking for potential, but then you're also so gifted at giving other leaders the tools to be successful. You don't just like throw them under the fire and be like, figure out how to be a manager now, right? Figure out how to be a great sales leader. You really are spending the time with them. And this isn't even necessarily part of your job description.
No, you're right. It's not, but it is something that I love. And it's also one of those things that, when you see a need, as an executive leader, you go and create the solution, right? When there's a need, you just go and fix it and help and support. And that's really what I do. Because, and part of that is based on my own experience. I didn't really have management leadership training. And it was just, the next person in tenured line is the next manager, and no one's been trained. And, there was a lot of probably very bad decisions I made in those situations, right? And I don't want to go out and make bad decisions, but my younger self, you just do the best you can. And I don't want to see that for anybody. I want to be there. I didn't necessarily have somebody to help show me the ways of management and leadership and what that looks like. You kind of had to figure it out. And that's not the way we want to do it, because at the end of the day, you make a lot of mistakes doing it. Being there for people and supporting them. And one of those ways at WorldStrides is I have created a new leadership workshop. And it's for all the new leaders that, recently, within the, 6 months or so had become managers, really wanted to spend a workshop together, making it very interactive, sharing resources, giving them resources. There's like 3 main sessions that we're doing, but it was just something that I felt the need to do to support our team. And, almost like in a line of succession, right? Trying to make sure that the next generation is coming up and prepared to lead our company and lead our division. And that's just so important.
And that also makes me think about how our relationship has changed over the 3.5 years and how we've worked together as your coach. Because number one, I want everybody to hear this. Jennifer never got to a point and said, I've arrived, I no longer need support. Instead, she's doing the brilliant thing that all really successful leaders do, and to say, hey, support is part of the journey. And so it's really evolved into how can I, help myself, and how do I manage my team, into how do I impact in this bigger way. And so I remember the conversation where you were like, I've been tapped to, I came up with this idea to hold this leadership training. Oh, now I have to run it. How is that? What is that going to look like? And what should we do? And then we're able to brainstorm together how to make that happen. And it's just, it's so important that you have that support, because then otherwise you would have, I'm not saying that you would have specifically, but there is the tendency to not sign up for that, to not put your name in the ring to help these other leaders, because we get so busy with our job itself, right? So we can't do the other things that are so impactful to ourselves and to the organization.
That's right. And it's true. I know one of the things, even with my HR department, they were like, oh, I know you're so busy. I can't believe you're taking time to do that, but it's important to me. And and being able to create something that is impactful is important, and you make time for that. But I also recognize, to your earlier point, you've never arrived, right? You're like you said, you're never there. And I think about actress Meryl Streep, like she has an acting coach, right? Like she doesn't win her Emmys and win her awards and be like, I don't need an acting coach anymore. No, she uses her acting coach. The professional football players, they have side coaches and they train and practice every single day. No one says, well, that's it for me. I won the Super Bowl, so I don't need to train anymore. No, right? You always need that. You always need that support. And one of the things I even talked to the folks in the new leadership workshop was that, also finding ways that you have to invest in yourself, right? Like if you want to be this awesome leader, you have to invest in yourself. And, and it's going to look different for everybody, but take that initiative and own it. And I feel that once you own it, which kind of goes back to the focusing on what you can control, because you can control what you're doing. And once you own it, you're empowered to do that for yourself. You're empowered to do something to make yourself better in whatever profession you have.
So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is your 3-year journey from vice president to chief sales officer. And what were some of the pivotal moments or changes or shifts that you made along the way to really transition into that? But I actually want to preface that with something that I'm seeing just in your words that you just shared. And that was this idea of ownership. And so what I think a lot of people do when they say, okay, I want to be chief sales officer someday, they focus so much on the promotion itself. Like, I'd like to have this title, or I'd like to make this amount of money. And I think I tended to have to pull that out of you, because you were always about, how do I change, right? What is it that I need to shift within myself to be successful as a chief sales officer, right? And I think that is so pivotal. And so at the vice president level, the commitment to grow into chief sales officer was always there, but it's that commitment to grow and that commitment to change, and the willingness to look at, what are the ways that I'm holding myself back, not from a quote unquote promotion, but how am I holding myself back from being the leader that I really envision in my head that I know I'm capable of being? So I'd love to hear from you what you think are some of the big moments and the life-changing moments for you in the last 3 years.
Well, I've got a few. So, it is funny because at the time, and I think maybe a lot of people are like this, at the time I was overlooked for a promotion. I didn't get one of the things that I thought, everyone always thinks they're the right person for it. And, there definitely was a pattern on some things with me. And I realized that there's something I'm not doing that I need to change, because that's part of my ownership. I can't blame things on everybody else, right? What can I control and what can I do? And knowing that I needed an objective view, it's just so hard to see some things from yourself. And I still remember some of my very first meetings with you, and I'm describing this or talk. It's hard, right? I mean, it's hard work, but it's also very hard to be vulnerable and recognize like you're really not doing a good job. And I still remember when you actually said, Jen, like, you're not acting like a vice president. She's like, you are not acting like a vice president in your role. And I was so taken aback. Like, what are you talking about? It was the things that I was doing and that what I wasn't doing. And, these were things that, I kind of grew up in the field thinking this is what you do, right? You roll up your sleeves, you get down in the weeds and you do it. And so there were so many various things that I needed. Not only was it needed to be pointed out, it was a lot of hard work to pull myself out of some of those patterns that I did for 20 years. And so really thinking that way, but then recognizing that, my gosh, yeah, if I'm not, no wonder why no one else is seeing me as a vice president or promoting me or, giving me these other opportunities. And I mean, that's pivotal, and I need to change.
It also, like, you could look at this recent example of leading this leadership group and, HR says, oh, well, gosh, you're so busy. I'm surprised you're going to take this on. And are you sure? Are you okay? And the thing is that back then, the first level VP Gen, because even VP Gen changed, right? Throughout the years,
exactly.
Right. But the first level VP Gen would have first maybe not had the time to volunteer for that, right? Not even been able to think about it. But even as we were discussing what you were going to do, you were leading this group, right? And so I think that is the huge difference as we start to think, oh, well, how do I add projects to the work that I'm already swamped and already overwhelmed in doing? And instead, you're able to look at it like, how can I really lead this program and so that it lives beyond me? This isn't about me having this great idea and inserting myself and my opinion into it. It's like, no, we actually want at WorldStrides to equip our managers with the resources. And so I'm going to bring all the resources I know and give them to them and then guide them and point them in different directions. That's leadership rather than, I think you said this once on a previous podcast, but being on the basketball court and doing, shooting all the baskets for them rather than leading from the side. You have to start changing that along the way. And also, as we're listening to Jennifer talk, I think for the individual, there is a certain amount of guilt that we feel because if you're being told, well, you're not acting like a vice president, you could have internalized that and made it like a fault, like, oh, I'm being bad. And like, no, there's actually just some ways that you can elevate your leadership and actually start to have a bigger impact. You don't have to do it this way. There are different ways of leading. And so really owning that. So I guess the first thing that you did, I'll just, paraphrase it, is you really took that ownership and you decided, okay, I'm going to step up my leadership. I'm going to take responsibility and I'm willing to do things differently, get that objective view and be like, all right, well, I'll try that and I'll see how it goes.
That's right. That's the thing. It's like, you have to be, that's the whole reason I'm in a coaching program, right? I mean, I've got to be open to things and got to try it.
Yeah. So what else do you think were pivotal transitions for you in the last 3 years?
So I think, part of that, what we were just talking about, kind of pulling yourself out of the weeds. And then, it really comes down to what I like to call simply the effective communication, and really communicating like an executive, right? Not going into a meeting with my boss and going into the weeds and going through, I'm communicating at an executive level, so communicating strategy and big picture and really showing myself showing up in that way. So I think that was another big factor. I thought, the old Jen, I'd come in like, okay, let's get down into my pipeline.
What do you guys want to do? What's happening today? Right. Versus like, here are the gaps. Here's what I'm seeing.
Yes, exactly. So a lot of that in the strategic thinking and then the effective communication of that, getting out of the weeds and speaking and seeing things differently.
Yeah, exactly. And so then it's like, basically, how do I pull myself out of the weeds technically? And then also, how do I communicate out of the weeds? And then now the third piece is what I really think is, how do I stand for something? And so in my opinion, you're stepping into your role as a thought leader, as a person who had a life and opinion, even outside of WorldStrides, about sales leadership, as a woman who has been building her entire career on this, has been also very pivotal in terms of your own self-confidence and your ability. And also, I think, actually, the confidence of your organization too, because lots of people at your organization are like, I saw that, I listened to that podcast, I did that thing, right? So tell us about all the amazing things that you do from that perspective.
It is, and it really started out as something fun, something to take my mind off the crazy COVID world that we were living in at the time. And, starting a podcast on something that I loved, and really what it came down to is I love sales. And it kind of goes back to wanting to make an impact and helping other people in sales. And so how can I take my, 30 years experience and how can I share that with other people? And so it really just started off that way, having fun with it. And honestly, it was one of the like, oh, whether people listen to it or not, I'm like, that's okay. Like, I'm doing it for me, right? I'm doing it for me. It's fine. But now, people are listening to it. I'm going on like over 2 years now. And the reviews and people talking, and sometimes I'm still like, wow, really? That's amazing. Like, that's awesome. So it's still really fun. And I still get a kick out of hearing that. But it's another platform, another way for me to help give back and support other people in their career journeys.
And what's the name of your podcast? That way we can find it.
I love it. Thank you. A Life You Love, Sales Tips with Jennifer Fisher, which I thought the title was perfect. So it's all about what I love. And it's the life I built that I love, which is all around sales.
Yeah. And I know when I talked about opportunities at work, like, this is the funny thing that happens when we really step into doing things that we truly love just for fun, is that opportunities can come to us internally that are completely unexpected, right? It's like, oh, Jennifer, I heard your podcast episode about this. You're like, what? Really? And I'd like you to come to speak to our sales team. And I'd like you to come and talk at this sales conference, and, different things that come out of that, because
so true.
They're listening to it for the words, for sure, like in the stuff that you're offering and the tips and all that stuff. But really, it's about looking at a woman who is making a bigger impact in leadership and really stands for something, and say, oh, we need her at our sales conference. Yes. We need a woman who is speaking because she stands for something. And I think that's where it's like the winning results, or like the side benefit, or like, just like, whoa, I was just doing something because I thought it was cool, and then it actually affected my career.
Yes, exactly. And I love it. I've been invited to numerous sales leadership conferences, and I will go and speak, and just, again, it's still fun for me, but it's also, helping other people. And that's really that's what sales is all about. And then at the end of the day, that's my impact and my commitment to kind of giving back a little bit.
Yeah, it's so good. Is there anything else that you can think about in the last couple of years that you really stand out as transitions, or maybe even surprises for yourself in the last few years?
I do think the transformation of, old Jen into the new Jen and where I am now, part of that transformation really was that grounded confidence. I think that's just the best way to say it, that grounded confidence now, that, I can go in and I've got that grounded confidence, and it's right there, and I'm able to speak up. I'm able to make a difference and make an impact, and, have higher level conversations because of that grounded confidence that I have in myself now.
You know, what's really funny is that even if it actually be kind of cool to compare the interviews, if we listen to the interview 3 years ago when I interviewed you and like today, honestly, from my perspective, tons of similarities, right? When I look at all of the corporate badasses inside of the programs that you're sitting right alongside, they're all so amazing, right? You're all, you show up to the conversation amazing, right? That is already the given. And then, like you said, there's these communication tools, or like maybe the awareness of where you're holding yourself back, or you're not leaning in, or maybe you're leaning in the wrong areas, right? Like being able to sort of suss that out, stepping into your podcast, right? Stepping into your thought leadership and really saying, okay, this is me, right, is what makes that grounded confidence. Because there was a confident woman in the beginning, right? She would not be a sales VP if she was not confident, right? Like she is a confident woman, but that grounded piece, which is just like, oh, I've got this. And I think that happened through the course of the time of taking the action. Really, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about the 15-minute ally meetings and really, engaging in conversation with executives, including your CEO when you were vice president, right? Not when it wasn't like every VP was meeting with him, and so it's correct. It's that willingness to really show up and to do something and to step into your power allowed that groundedness. I think
that's right. That's right. And that's a very good point. The 15-minute ally meetings was really pivotal because there would be times pre-COVID, that I would bump into my CEO or I'd bump into another executive person, in the kitchen or coming out of a restroom. And, you're building a relationship that way, which was fabulous. But once COVID happened and we're not there were no opportunities for that. Your idea of these 15-minute ally meetings provided a way to stay connected to my CEO, to people on my executive team, and stay connected in ways that, bring value or impact or, whatever that looked like throughout COVID. And that's something, that was pivotal. That absolutely was pivotal.
Right. You wouldn't have been seen, literally not seen. You wouldn't be present with these other executives, but then also it builds that confidence because you're still in the room with them and you're still connecting. And even if they're not there physically. So I think that's just huge.
Yeah, it was perfect. Yeah, it was really impactful.
Yeah. So we talked for a minute about the ways that our relationship has changed in terms of what I'd like the technical, what I'm coaching you on now and different things like that. But I also want to point to how our relationship has changed in terms of impacting me and my business. And so this is something I don't often get to share with Jennifer. So she might be a little embarrassed, but, I talk about creating your own personal board of directors and really surrounding yourself with other leaders that can also advise you in various different areas and inspire you and help you keep focused on the prize, like understanding what the work is that you're doing. And so not only did the work that I do with Jennifer make my dream a reality, which is like really, it started out as an idea that I could take someone from a vice president to a chief sales officer in 3 years. Like, oh yeah, sure, I can do that. Right. But it's like, I'd never done it before. And so not only does it make it a real reality, but every single conversation that we have is about that greater impact, right? You're constantly sharing with me, like, Stacy, you've changed my life, right? And
yes, it's true.
And it matters because now what I think we've always been, it's like, I treat my corporate badasses like I feel like they're my peers, but more so in the last year or so. And I think it's actually coming from you. It's your willingness, like you said, to continue showing up for coaching, to understand that this is a journey, that it's always evolving. Your willingness to partner with the women, all the way from women who are in our group, who are individual contributors looking to transition into management, and to just say, you got this. And like, just keep doing the 15-minute ally meetings, listen to say, right. And then also your understanding of what it really means to change leadership, what the impact that we can have as women leaders. And I know more recently too, we both we're reading the same books now, right? We're learning and thinking about women and leadership and the impact that we all want to make as leaders. And I just want to offer that too, because I think in the beginning, this road to our 3X vision can feel very selfish. It can feel like, oh, it's just about me and this title and more money or more influence. No, it's never a selfish road. Every step that you take in your leadership is for impacting so many other lives.
It's so true. I mean, it really is. And yes, and I still fully believe you have changed my life. And, you've given me the tools to change my life. Yeah. I mean, everything is just centered around that. And it is a journey. Like, you don't get to a point where oh, and I'm done. Okay. Because, it just, it's a journey. Like there's always evolving things. And it's just so good to have an objective point of view. It's great to be with the other women in the group. I mean, I learned so much from them. Half the time I'm taking my own notes going, oh, I like that. Let me try this out. I mean, it's a great community of women leaders. And that is it's amazing. I mean, what you've created for all of us is amazing. And that's what's changing our lives.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you so much for your leadership. We're going to link to your podcast in the show notes. Are there other ways that anybody who's listening to this should connect with you or find you or learn more about you?
Oh, yeah. So LinkedIn is the best place to find me, Jennifer Fisher, but it's also Jen Loving Sales. So you can look that up on LinkedIn and it's all connected right there.
Oh, so good. Jennifer, any final words of advice for somebody who might be at that vice president level, looking to make that leap, can't quite figure out what the heck you're talking about in terms of these changes and whatever else I need to do to get there? It feels so far away. Maybe they even just got passed over for a promotion or the victim of different reorgs and changes happening within organizations. Any final words of advice for her?
I would say to always remember that you are empowered to make the change, and if it doesn't work out at one place, that's okay, because you are amazing and you are awesome and you are empowered. Like you have the control to go and do what you need to do and take it, take yourself and your leadership where it's going to be valued.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're empowered to do that. You own that.
Exactly. Yeah, so good. Well, Jennifer, thank you again. Jennifer Fisher, you're amazing. I cannot wait to have you on the podcast again. Yay. Because every time, just the growth and the learning and just the amazing inspiration that you bring to the conversation, it's just fantastic. Thank you.
Well, it's been such an honor. Thank you so much, Stacy. It's just, I can't thank you enough. You've changed my life. But thank you so much.